You know, the timber industry in Idaho began because of two things. We became a state in 1890, right around the time the forests around the Great Lakes region were just about depleted, which is where most of the country's lumber was coming from at the time. So it's been with us since the start, and it's part of Idaho's origin story. And the timber industry has its fingerprints all over the gem state. I'm talking about Rathdrum, Sandpoint, Kootenai, Potlatch, to name a few Idaho towns built on logging. Most of them in the Panhandle, sure, but not all of them. Potlatch High School, for example, the mascot, the loggers. And some of those cities have faded or they've lost their link to lumber. You know, you can think Horseshoe Bend or Cascade. But despite what you might think, it is not a dying industry. In fact, demand for timber is growing, and the industry needs to expand to meet that demand. What is reaching the autumn of the occupation? Well, those working in the industry. Loggers are getting older, like retirement old, and logging companies can't find younger people to fill those jobs. Here's Andrew Bartline.
If a tree falls in the forest, but no loggers are there to cut, strip, stack, and truck, does it make any products?
We struggle to have a full crew. You know, we're always seem to be short somebody.
The timber industry labor shortage. It's a problem he saw falling from miles away.
It's been my life.
Gary Icola took over his father's Valley County-based logging company in the 1970s.
You know, I grew up in it. I was going out in the woods when I was 3. You know, so it has never been just a job.
But it is a job, really? And several of Gary's employees,
Part of your family, you know.
Are getting older, and they're getting ready to hang it up.
It concerns me that they're not going to be out here working too awfully much longer, and I'm going to have to replace them. And who am I going to replace them with?
Gary's average employee is 55 years old, and that's not a surprise to his son, Gabe Icola.
It's definitely mostly older people.
Because he's considered one of the young guys.
A couple of my friends I've been able to convince to come out and work for a bit, but I'm not really interested in staying for that long, it seems like.
But most aren't interested in showing up at all. Despite accounting for nearly $2.5 billion of Idaho's economy, the timber industry isn't attracting young workers.
That's a perception that it's just nothing but physical work, you know, and that's not the case at all anymore.
It's the same misconception the Idaho Forest Products Commission has tried to cut down for years.
These pieces of equipment now are so mechanized. You get in and there's a lot of semblance to gaming.
Yeah, there's not too much chainsaw work these days. It's a lot of equipment operating.
The logging industry of today is not at all the logging industry of yesteryear.
The change in industry begs for a change of strategy.
Due to recent updates in technology, loggers today are a little bit more brains than brawn, and the University of Idaho is trying to solve this workforce problem by offering a new degree path.
This is not a forester's degree. This is a degree to hire or to train individuals that are interested in going out and working in the forest operations sector on logging operations.
Charles Goebel is the U of I Forest, Rangeland, and Fire Sciences department head.
We really have a social contract with the citizens of the state to provide access to high quality and affordable education.
In April, the university officially announced their first associate's degree in school history, a 2-year program in forest operations and technology.
We were being responsive to the forest products industry across the state.
According to numbers from the University of Idaho, lumber sales in the state are increasing at rates faster than loggers can produce.
And so our industry is now faced with, how are we going to meet that demand for wood over the next 20 years?
The antidote to the problem today is a simple diagnosis.
Filling in for various jobs is need be, you know, day to day.
That's just expected now?
Well, yeah, it's just the only way we can really do it these days.
But it's not sustainable, because just like rotting wood, a logger can only spend so many years in the forest.
The guy that's loading the truck, he's in his early 70s.
Where all products have an expiration date.
You know, this may be his last season. You know, I've been thinking about that. Who do I replace him with?
Professor Goebel says loggers work directly with the university to outline this new 2-year degree path. They're hoping to see young people take an interest and jump at the opportunity because, Brian, timber is very important to the state's economy. And, of course, these people, these companies, a lot of them family, locally owned companies, they need people to go out and do this work.
It seemed like it was very important to Gary as well. He seemed a little bit emotional talking about as much time as he spent in the forest with his business in this industry, and now trying to figure out, all right, how do we keep this thing going?
Yeah, and it's a tough problem to diagnose, too. I mean, we look at numbers, Bureau of Labor Statistics. Idaho is the highest paying state for loggers.
Really?
$31 an hour. And they were telling me at ICOLA that they're paying people $25 an hour fresh out of high school. So, I mean, I guess there's risks and hazards, but it's much safer than it used to be. And he's struggling because he's like, I don't think money's the problem. But a lot of young people don't want to do it.
You got to be willing to spend some time by yourself, but looks like in an air-conditioned tractor in some of those situations. So it's not, like you said, not like it used to be where you're strapping a saw to your back and heading into the hills.
A little more comfortable now than it used to be.
Exactly. All right. Thank you very much, Andrew.